Hello and welcome. The movie I'll be talking about today is probably one of the stranger films that I'll be mentioning on this series. This is the 1973 drama Ash Wednesday, starring Elizabeth Taylor as Barbara Sawyer, a woman staying at a posh Italian resort waiting for her estranged husband to arrive so that they can discuss their marriage. Oh, and she also has head-to-toe plastic surgery shown in graphic detail. Yeah. Now, first off, I want to say that I blurred out the actual surgical scenes, but even so, if medical procedures aren't your thing or if you're easily squeamish, viewer discretion is advised. Before getting into the film itself, I want to talk about Elizabeth Taylor's career up to this point. Now, to be honest, I don't have the best knowledge of Taylor's career. I know the basics, the Richard Burton collaborations, the Tennessee Williams adaptations, and of course that perfume commercial that's still on television today.
Not so fast, Von Ryan. These have always brought me luck.
Obey.
White Diamonds, the intriguing fragrance from Elizabeth Taylor.
The 1970s brought a shift in Taylor's career. Instead of making big Hollywood films, she started making smaller, mostly European films. Some of these movies I think are really good, like the 1972 thriller Night Watch, while others...
I have to have an orgasm a day on my macrobiotic diet, you see.
Well, they exist. Ash Wednesday opens up with a montage of photos documenting the relationship of Mark, played by Henry Fonda, and Barbara, played by Elizabeth Taylor. As the photos progress, you see both Mark and Barbara succumb to age. Now an old woman, Barbara has secretly checked herself into a clinic where she is going to have plastic surgery all over her body. Although at the beginning she is having second thoughts and decides not to go through with the procedure.
You mustn't be so hard on yourself. Others have changed their mind at the last minute also. You know, it's rather fortunate you didn't tell your husband about your plans. He'll never know you even contemplated doing it. Everything will be just as it was before.
No. I'll go back with you.
Ultimately, she decides to go through with the procedure. Now, I'm not sure how old she's supposed to be in this movie, but Henry Fonda was in his 70s when he made this film, and in one scene, Barbara said they had been together for 30 years. Anywho, Barbara has the surgery, and as I said, it is shown in graphic detail, from the prepping, to the main event, to the recovery. I want to stress that the slicing and cutting scenes are short, but the overall scenes in the clinic can be hard to watch in general if medical scenes make you squeamish. I actually read online that they filmed real facelift operations to show the more graphic scenes, although I can't confirm nor deny that piece of trivia. While recovering, Barbara befriends another patient named David. David has already had the major procedure and is back for a touch-up. He shows her the ropes and also tries to get her out of her shell.
I haven't been able to get Mark on the telephone.
Is that all?
He's my husband. How could I have left without discussing this with him? I had no right to do this without telling him.
Stop worrying about it. You're going to look fabulous. You can't imagine how good you'll feel when those bandages come off.
Once she's recovered, David gives her another pep talk, and then she's off to Cortina, where she plans to meet up with her husband and reveal her new self to him. Unfortunately, Mark keeps putting off his arrival date, and after a while, it's uncertain if he's even going to show up. At first, she is devastated, but David arrives and helps to cheer her up. While at the hotel, Barbara also meets a young man named Eric, a young playboy who doesn't have the best track record with women. He ultimately sets his sights out on her.
You were sizing up what your chances with me were.
What are my chances?
What's your room number?
442.
442. Thank you for the company. Good night.
Eventually, Barbara and Eric do get together and her husband does show up, but if you're curious about the outcome, I suggest you check this film out. Although Ash Wednesday has been pretty much forgotten, it is worth mentioning that Elizabeth Taylor's performance earned her a Golden Globe nomination in 1974. Aside from that, however, the reviews have pretty much been negative. Roger Ebert called the film a soapy melodrama. And the New York Times said that the film wasn't a male chauvinist's conception of a woman, but her hairdressers, full of envy, awe, and superficial compassion. Variety was much nicer, saying Ash Wednesday is a jolting tearjerker about a middle-aged marital trauma compounded by the superficial and spiritual uplift of cosmetic surgery. One thing the reviews kept mentioning was the fact that Elizabeth Taylor's character was a vain person who was always obsessively checking herself out in the mirror. I have to disagree with this. When I first heard about this movie, a story about someone that has full-bodied plastic surgery, I pictured the character to be someone like Gloria Swanson in Sunset Boulevard, or more comically Meryl Streep in Death Becomes Her.
Wrinkled, wrinkled little star. Hope they never see the scars.
Instead, she was a woman who was crushed to have everything that defined her taken away. Barbara Sawyer was a woman who spent her life being a wife and a mother. Now her daughter is full grown and her husband no longer wants to be with her. She's not trying to regain her beauty for her own recognition. She's trying to be the woman that her husband married 30 years ago. There's a scene where you can really see how alone she feels. After her husband calls her and tells her that he won't be arriving on schedule due to work, she makes a call to her daughter who is living in Paris.
Kate,
Yes, Mother.
how would you like to come and spend a few days with me here? We have so much to talk about.
That would really be lovely, but Cortina is hardly the sort of place I'd feel comfortable in.
Aren't you even going to ask me about my operation?
Oh my God, I forgot. How did it go?
I was anxious to have your reaction.
Her daughter does eventually show up towards the end of the second act, and although I think it's still weird that she completely forgot that her mother was having surgery, judging by her reaction at the airport, I'm pretty sure she just didn't realize how intense that surgery was going to be. While at lunch, their happy reunion takes a turn when her daughter brings up the affair.
He shouldn't have told you. That was wrong of him. You're gonna have to face it. He loves that girl. My God, she's younger than you are.
Oh, Mom, that doesn't make any difference at all.
And by the end of the scene, you can see how much her daughter really loves her.
Look, Mother, I'm not going to go with you to Cortina. Everything's going so well for you there, and you've made so many new friends. I'd only be in the way.
You're my daughter. I love you. I want to be with you.
And I love you too. That's exactly why I shouldn't be there.
Now, does what I just show you show the characteristics of someone who's vain? This movie isn't without faults, however. One thing the reviews seem to mention is the pacing, and I have to agree. With a runtime of just under 100 minutes, it definitely feels longer. There are many scenes with Taylor sitting, walking, standing, eating, drinking, and although they are beautifully shot, they don't offer much to the story. And let's talk about the surgical scenes. For a movie that is styled like one of those old Hollywood dramas, it's quite strange that for a few minutes the movie is less like An Affair to Remember and more like Eyes Without a Face. I mean, except for a rare few. Someone who enjoys Eyes Without a Face probably wouldn't be interested in this.
Hello.
Hello.
And someone who enjoys An Affair to Remember probably wouldn't be interested in this. But Ash Wednesday gives you both. And I'm sure that some would find these scenes gratuitous or just a gimmick, but I actually feel they're very necessary. Barbara Sawyer is a character that many can relate to emotionally. And we live in a society obsessed with before and afters, but no one wants to talk about the in-betweens. Even if the results are beneficial, I think it's necessary to see the process, from the prepping, to the cutting, to the swollen recovery, to even the removing of the stitches. It's necessary to see that people are willing to do this to themselves. And what about the plastic surgery? Was this something she should have done? Or should she have accepted that her husband was no good and move on, and embrace her golden years? Does having plastic surgery mean you're not embracing your golden years? If her marriage is saved, she'll have to accept that their relationship was superficial. However, if her marriage isn't saved, I'm sure she would eventually be okay. But would that be the case if she didn't have the surgery? What do you think? Have any of you seen Ash Wednesday? Do you feel it deserves a second look? Or was it just better left forgotten? Until next time.